Today on the Tin Man podcast show, I haven't got a clue who it is. I do really. It's Medea Solzan, motivational speaker, public speaker.
Yeah.
What else do you do?
Motivational speaker. I deliver workshops in schools.
Yeah.
In Bolton, actually. I come in Bolton through a company called Tales to Inspire. So we deliver a 6-week program to the kids to regulate their emotions. We they basically showing them that all emotions are good emotions. So because you wouldn't believe how many kids, when we ask them whether anger and sadness is a good emotion, you wouldn't believe how many kids say it's a bad emotion.
Really?
Yeah. So it's really for them to learn that anger is okay to release anger. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel those emotions. It's not.
That's sad just hearing that.
Yeah. It's a lot of kids who.
How did you get into that in the first place? Doing that? Where's your why come from? Where have you started out then?
Right. So I have a really long journey. I wasn't really planning on working with the kids or anything like that. You know, I've had a quite adverse background. And after my spiritual awakening at the age of 27, I started to do, self-healing, inner work, a lot of inner work. I used to sit in my room every single day, ask myself 2 questions. How are you feeling today? Are you okay? And that brought up so much trauma inside of me.
What is the spiritual awakening? What was that moment? What was that?
Oh, that was, okay, so I was an atheist for most of my life because of my hardships that I've been through. And
do you talk about them hardships you've been through?
Oh, everywhere. Yeah.
What are them?
Right. So, how long have you got?
We're just gonna go, Medea.
I'll try and get it in a nutshell. So basically, I was born in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And life in Pakistan was extremely difficult because obviously we didn't have enough money, and it was just me, my mum, and dad. So my dad moved to the UK to create a better life for us. So it was just me and my mum, but she was always ill in Pakistan. She got hepatitis C, but because we didn't have enough money to pay for her treatment, she was struggling quite a lot. And then there was in school, I was physically abused by one of the teachers in school. She would every day get me in front of the class, and she would ask me to read something. And if I made a mistake, she would punch me, she would slap me and send me out of the class. And that was around the age of 5, 6. And then around the age of 7, I moved to the UK with my mum to be with my dad. And life in the UK was still difficult because I didn't speak any English, which meant I had no friends. And my mum and dad was still struggling in, financially, because my dad was working and my mum was ill. And we stayed in a private rented place with 1 bed, 1 heater in the living room. And my mum and dad gave me the bed while they slept on the floor. That was our life for 2 years. But in school for several months, I was terrified to go to school because I thought the teacher would be exactly the same here. So I would cry. And then one day, principal got me and my mum and dad in the office, and he said, she cries too much in school. What's going on there? And if it carries on, because there's no underlying, because I didn't know why I was crying, really, basically. At that moment, I was a 7-year-old trying to make sense of what happened to me, right? I can understand it now. I'm a 35-year-old woman. I can understand what happened to me now. But 7 year, I don't know. I'm crying. I'm terrified of the teachers. And they said, well, we're going to have to put her in special needs school if she keeps crying, because there's something obviously wrong with her mentally. But little did they know that it was a trauma that the teacher left on me. Anyway, they were playing around with the idea for a while, and then eventually I stopped crying because I realized the teachers were they were more gentle here, so I kind of just felt a bit safe with them, so I stopped crying. And so I started settling in, became the captain of my cricket team. I'm the only girl in boys' cricket team. And then fast forward several years later, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And he passed away within a year because it was quite rapid. Came back, it was in his bladder first. They removed the bladder. Then it came back in his bowels and it just spread really, really fast. And he died within a year. And then 6 months after, my mom fell extremely ill. She got severe rheumatoid arthritis, hepatitis C, all of those, and she was in depression, bedbound. So I became her carer at the age of 14. So I've been caring for her for more than 20 years. Wow. She's still alive. And yes, but throughout that journey, because of the pressures on my shoulder, I started to suffer from extreme anxiety to a point I could not even leave the house. So I used to have community befrienders come take me out in my garden, because I used to have panic attacks even going to my garden, because I was afraid. I was afraid that the world is so cruel and so hard. A 14-year-old, I just did not want to be here. I was suicidal. And so they would come take me to the street, park, our garden. And it was just back and forth for like more than 10 years. I was cooped up inside my house, like basically living in my own hell, like a cage. And fast forward around age of 27, that's where spiritual awakening happened. Like I said before, I didn't believe in anything. I was an atheist. Because I used to think that if God was real, why would he make me suffer? Why would he make anyone else suffer, right? And all I've seen is suffering from the day that I was born. I was angry child, a lot of anger in me, but I was suppressing a lot of feelings because it was too painful. I didn't mourn the loss of my dad because I became like my mom's carer, so it was like responsibility at a young age. So I didn't mourn that. And so what I would do is I would suppress those feelings by just gaming or watching, distracting myself in my room. So I would play games from like every morning, wake up until night, right? And that was my life, and eat and obviously look after my mom at the same time. So that was just my hell basically. And not every time there was an emotion, I would just look for, oh, let's watch TV or let's do this. And so there was a lot of junk inside of me for many years. And it's like now I look back and I think anxiety was basically just an alarm bell ringing that there's something you need to look at, there's something you need to feel, there's something you need to look at, really look at, but I was ignoring it. And it came to a point where my spiritual awakening happened 27, when I had 2 out-of-body experiences back to back. And I'll tell you about the first experience. Basically, I was laying on my bed and I wasn't sleeping or awake, right? So I was just, I don't know, I was in between basically, the sleep and the, when I was awake.
I think you call it yoga nidra, that in between, yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So what happened, I started to feel a vibration on my legs, and then it started moving up, and it was just like, it wasn't like shaking, it was like buzzing kind of vibration. And then all of a sudden, I just felt like something lifted out of my body, and I just ended up in this place where everything was just completely white, right? Like there was, like the light was so bright that it didn't even hurt my eyes, right? And while I was there, I felt like I was home, and this is where I belong. This is where I'm like, this is like where my soul is originally from. I just kind of understood everything. It's like you have the formula to the universe when you're in that state, because you know everything. And there was like beams of light standing there without any physical appearance. So from my understanding,
like
while
energies.
I was there, they were like souls standing there. And I went up to one light. He turned around and turned into the face of my dad, and he smiled and he said, "Everything is okay. Don't worry." As soon as he said that, I came back, and I remember from my right leg to top of my head, my body was vibrating, and then all of my body was vibrating, and I freaked out, to be honest, because I've no knowledge of this. I thought, well, I've got some of the mental health condition now. I don't know what's going on. And so that's when, like, for a week, I didn't tell anyone, because I thought people would think that I've gone mad, right? And I just kept it to myself. But at the same time, I was freaking out. But at the same time, I was in such a blissful state. It was like, it's really hard to explain. It was just such high. And then I would come back and my ego would take over and it would say, what the hell was that? What the hell was that? I was freaking out. I was anxious, having panicky. And then I would get into that blissful state. It's like, it was on and off, on and off, on and off. And then a week later, same thing happened. I ended up in this place.
You're not meditating, you're not doing anything. These things are just...
I didn't even know what meditation was. I've heard about it, but I was like, never even come across it at all whatsoever. And then same thing is, but this time it was just this bubble of energy just wrapped around me, and I just felt so much love, like love that I've never experienced in my entire life, not even from my parents. And that was quite brief. And I remember opening my eyes. This was the middle of the night, probably 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I can't remember, but it was middle of the night. I remember opening my eyes and I felt the vibration again, and I heard the loudest, just before then, I was just mumbling in my sleep, because first time I actually thought there was something bigger than myself. There's something, maybe God, maybe there's something there that is bigger, because that love was just so empowering in a way, very positive love, right? And I just mumbled in my sleep, and I just like, oh, thank you, God, for everything. Thank you, God, for everything. I just randomly started saying that and heard the loudest voice in my right ear that said, stay positive and keep going. It was freaky loud, really, really loud. That moment changed everything. I cried, and then that was it. That was like something clicked, where I went from a person who couldn't leave the house without having panic attacks to doing everything, socializing, helicopter rides, and like studying. And then that led me to do quite a lot of inner work, because I would say that, like, okay, yeah, you do all these amazing things on the outside, you were living cooped up inside your house, but the important work that I was doing was I was releasing those emotions. I was purging them out of my body. And the way I was doing it on my own. It was like I was guided. I didn't even know what I was doing. It's like, okay, I need to sit down. I couldn't even game anymore. I couldn't even eat meat anymore. I couldn't even, my phone was it was away most of the time. I lost connection with, the world. I've already lost connection with the world, but I was living with my mom. But I was sitting in my room every day. Like I said, I was asking myself 2 questions, and they were, how are you feeling? Are you really okay? Are you really okay? And that was like bringing up so much trauma from the last 16 years of my life. Everything about my dad was coming up, everything I didn't grieve, everything, my childhood, the life that I lost, and becoming a carer, and all of those purges. There was a point, right? It became that normal for me to release those emotions. It became that normal to a point where I used to be rolling on the floor with the pain of the trauma, and then I would get up. It's like, okay, time to get up and play badminton. That's how easy it became to release emotions. And it became like it was like everything I was purging out, I felt lighter, even more lighter, and I started to feel good. I felt more peaceful. And then I sat one day and I kept asking myself those questions, and nothing was coming up. I was like, oh, maybe there's more layer to my dad. Maybe there's something more there that needs releasing, and nothing was coming up. I was feeling just really light, really peaceful, really happy. Like, first time in my life I felt this happy. And in that moment I realized, you know what, I might have just healed all that trauma. I might have, and I did. And then since then, I've been carrying this journey. I was like, okay, universe. At this point, I'm looking into the universe. I'm looking into law of attraction. I'm starting to read and watch videos at this point to make sense of what's happening. And then I was like, okay, universe, I've done all this work. I'm doing all this work. How do I turn my negative life experiences into something positive that would help people? How do I do it? And I had a thought and I let it go. A couple of weeks later, we were at this at Friends Meeting House in Manchester. We were at a Law of Attraction meeting, and at the end of the meeting, we were outside the building, and my friend, who's an actress, she goes, "Well, I want to do public speaking because I get stage fright." And I was like, "What is public speaking?" I thought it's like business conference kind of thing. She goes, "No, you can go on stage and share your story or deliver workshops." I was like, "Oh, is that even possible?" She goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay." While we were talking about it, these two guys popped out the building talking about public speaking. And guess what? They teach public speaking. And I was like, "Okay, well, maybe this is a sign, I'll take it." It was her idea. She didn't go for it. I went for it. I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." Ended up like researching about public speaking and like, you know, learning about it, studying about it, and then I ended up on stage in front of 100 people sharing my story. And then like 3 months later, I ended up on stage again in front of 150 people sharing what I did, like the inner healing and everything. And then that kind of just led me, someone just nominated me for Best Female Inspirational Person of the Year award. Like 6 months later, I won that. And then I was just like, and then I had like radios coming at me. I was like interviewed on TV. It was just crazy. And then a year later, I got nominated again. I won again. And then, yeah, and then that's been my journey. Really, that is my journey. So you asked how I got into schools. Well, so one of the company I work with, Tales to Inspire, so they share people's stories. And
I think I've heard of him too.
Yeah, Krish Patel, he's an amazing guy. And he was in the audience when I was giving my second live talk. And he contacted me, said, look, your story is amazing. Can I get you on our blog? And I was like, yeah, okay. And since then, I've just been an ambassador, you know, working with them and sharing my story. I ended up on that in the book. 23. I think out of all the stories, I was one of the story in 23. Book. And then he's like, okay, well, we're starting to go in schools now. Do you want to think about creating some workshops? Do you want to work with kids? And at that point, I was like, oh my God, I've never worked with kids. What do I do? And he's like,
when he said that to you, how did you feel? Because are you feeling you're going back to
my school? That's the thing. Yeah. This is where it got a bit tricky, because every time I was around kids, I felt anxious. I started to feel anxious around kids. When he was there, we went in. We were interviewing kids, refugee kids, like, you know. So I was really anxious, and I was like, okay, I need to look into. So I went. My friend is a internal family system therapist. Yeah. So I've been doing that therapy. It's absolutely amazing therapy.
Olivia.
Yeah. Natasha. So it's her friend. Yeah. So so I've been going into the sessions like, okay, I'm struggling in schools right now. What's going on? So we've been looking into our parts.
And what? Tell me about the parts. So what's come up for you?
I think it's more of a sense. The parts were just afraid because I was bullied throughout my school life, and also obviously the teacher. But year 7, the memory was coming up in year 7 because I was bullied throughout year 7 in school. And I just did not trust kids. For some reason, I felt I didn't feel safe around kids. So we were just working with those parts, what was going on, and even the parts where when I was younger, you know, my mom, like, seeing that, even like it's crazy how this works, because one of the parts was like,
that's internal family systems, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you're saying there's so many parts to a person that you've got to address each one.
Yeah. So basically, it's like you have exile parts, you have protectors, and you have firefighters. Yeah. So your exile parts are basically like a deep trauma that you've experienced. So for example, let's say you have wound of abandonment, right? So that is that exile part, like, you know, so you are like getting triggered left, right, and center in real life, but that's actually your exile. But your protectors come in trying to protect that. But then your firefighters, they would kind of just try and control the situation, denial and that kind of thing. So you're not looking at that exile. And then your firefighter would come in, and that would just be basically like, well, you know, you're feeling that trigger, let's have a drink, let's have a smoke, let's have this, let's have that, let's distract. Like what I was doing all these years, firefighters and protectors working so hard to protect those traumas that I experienced in my life. I think it's such a brilliant therapy to go into. It's like it processes it right there and then. And then you kind of just like, in my own example.
Yeah, I love that. They're asking the questions and why is that triggering me? Why am I feeling like, how are you feeling today, Tim? You know, asking a little Tim, how are you feeling today? And doing all that. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like all your parts need is feeling seen and heard.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and there's no bad part. All parts are doing their job to get you functioning. So that trauma is like, it's hard to experience. The pain is hard to experience. So those protectors and firefighters will come in and just kind of just stop that, right? But they're actually doing their job, but they don't realize that they don't have to do that job. Yeah. You know, it's okay for us to process our trauma. And that's what I teach in my workshops. So I deliver the importance of inner healing workshops. So
how did you... Have you got over that now? Are you still working with that about, you know,
the kids?
Yeah, the anxiety.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's. I'm in a much better place now. So I've been working with the kids, and I absolutely love it. Like you know, we have such a laugh now. I feel more.
But you're coming from a place of understanding them, aren't you?
Yeah, and also
you're teaching them totally different to how everyone else does.
Yeah, and it's also what it is. It's like there's a woman called Teal Swan. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's amazing. She talks about emotions. So she was talking about working with the opposing parts of yourself before you go in the world. So basically, like so many people. They have all this trauma, they have all limiting beliefs, but they run like they don't look at it. Yeah. Like they're working on a project, they're working on it, and they're not looking at their stuff. But what will make you successful and push you forward beyond them is that you will sit there and you work through your trauma. You are going to work through your limiting beliefs, sit there while they're running, but they will get heavier and heavier and heavier because they're not looking at it, and they will feel defeated, like slowly. But you're looking at it, you clear all of that junk, right? And then you will move forward and you will go ahead. And every time there's an obstacle, you can clear it. You know how to clear it. You know, the way I explain it in my talks is you have this trash can inside of you, right? And each trauma is a rotten tomato. So every time something happens, whether you're going through a heartbreak or loss of a loved one, that rotten tomato goes inside of you. So what we do is it keeps coming in, even if it's small trauma, like keeps coming in to a point, it fills you up, it changes your personality. If you're angry out in the world, you're not living your authentic life, and it's like, it stinks, right? Like, what do you do with a trash can that's full of rotten tomatoes? It's like, it stinks. What do you do with the actual trash can? You clear it out, right? So that's what the emotions are. You have to clear them out of your system, because body does keep the score, right? You have to clear them out in order for you to upgrade to the next level. But so many people, we don't realize that. We don't realize, we just like, well, this has happened. Let's just, nip it in the bud and just keep moving forward. But at the end of the day, they slow down. It gets heavier. The older you get, the heavier. Now you're left with so many rotten tomatoes, and you don't know what to do with them. You don't know how to deal with it. Whereas if you can start now, slowly, gradually work your way up, and before you know it, the opportunities only come when you clear the trash. And that's what I've noticed is when I was so blocked up all those years with those emotions. Once I was clearing them, like opportunity of public speaking or winning these awards and going on radios and delivering these workshops, only coming in because I'm doing the internal work. It starts from within.
And do you teach people this, or do you just talk about this?
Yeah. So I deliver workshops. So through Tales Inspire at the moment, I'm delivering to teachers' assistants and head teachers in Wales and parents in schools. So we've been and outside of it as well. So I've been crafting quite a lot of workshops to do with that, So I've had my experience now. It's time to craft it. So I get them in my workshop. I get them in a bit of a space where They have this emotion. Okay, when was the last time you felt it? When was the first time you felt it? So they kind of just link it all the way back to their childhood, because everything starts from your childhood, right? Yeah. So I had, like, for example, I had somebody who was avoiding being in a relationship for so long, and he realized that the emotion that he gets triggered, it goes all the way back to his first relationship, first heartbreak. And he was working through that. He's working through that. Now it's like he's worked through that. And that's why I kind of teach to recognize where the wound really starts. And it actually starts from your parents. And that doesn't mean that your parents are wrong. They only did the best that they could. It's your job to kind of just, all right, you've done your best. It's time for me to, like, heal that, you know, and recognize that this is a journey that I need to go on in order to help people. This is a journey that I need to go on.
How do people know that it's a journey that they need to go on? Is there a certain thing that switches in the red? It's like...
Yeah, I think for many people it's different. You know, it's a different journey. For my journey is this journey, right? For somebody else, for someone like you, it might be completely different. It might be actually this podcast, right? That you're helping, and all the stuff that you're helping people build a brand, right?
Yeah.
That is your journey, right? And that's it works in a perfect way, because then you'll have people like me would come to you, because I don't have skills in that. I have skills in this, but you have skills in it. And that's when you kind of collaborate, right? And so your journey would be, you're still helping people build their stuff, right? You're still creating stuff out in the world, and you know your purpose, you know what you're doing. Yeah. And even if you don't really need to know, because life will just kind of present you little nuggets of, okay, you need to go down this route, you need to go down this route. I normally say, I'm on Universe's payroll. Where do you want me to go, Universe? Right, Universe is like, I'm going to take you to schools. You going to schools? Right, okay. But there's a trauma there you need to look at. So I was like, okay, I'm going to look in that trauma. And then moving forward, I don't know whether I'm going to be working in schools like for a long time, but it's like, I feel like the way your life is, you can go in different directions.
Have you ever met anybody that's had the same experiences as you, that's been an atheist, that doesn't believe in anything? An out-of-body experience? Because it's like, I've never heard that before.
No, I've not personally.
What was it? Is it an angel coming to visit you? What now, knowing what you know, what was that experience?
It was, well, now I'm more spiritual now, like, you know, not religious, but spiritual. But yeah, I think it was just an awakening. It was awakening. What I really believe is, when I was in that state, it was really made clear that your soul comes in.
Would you have committed suicide?
Before then?
At some point, if that hadn't come, that awakening?
Probably. What I say is, if you don't suffer enough, you won't have your awakening. Yeah. So for me, my suffering was enough for me to say enough is enough. My soul was, but even though consciously I'm not thinking it. But I think it was a divine kind of intervention. Yeah, because what I really believe is, like, when I was in that, like I was saying, in that state, is it was really made, like, well known that, like, your soul chooses the path that it needs to go on before it gets to the physical realm. And 50% of it is your 50% of the big stuff that's supposed to happen to you to help you grow is already done, right? And the other 50% is you manifest yourself. So that's what that is what my understanding is of how it came about. So losing my dad, becoming a carer, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful. Now, it's not something that you hear someone say, I'm grateful the way my life panned out. I'm grateful my dad died the way he died. My mom, I'm becoming a carer for my mom, because those are the things were vital for me to help other people, right? And they will, if I didn't have those experiences, I would be just doing completely something else. I wouldn't have the motivation to have the motivation and drive to help people, you know, because I've lived through it, experienced through it.
Does it all stem from about you being bullied at school? I just feel like that is that your purpose? What is your purpose? Why are you here?
I think I don't know. Honestly, right now sitting here, I thought I knew my purpose. I was like, okay, yeah, but I have a vision that I want to be on stage, delivering workshops, doing something big, you know, and that is my vision. Yeah. The purpose is like everything will just click together as I go on in my life. So I don't want to know my purpose now. I want to go at how I unravel each things, because the bullying thing in year 7 is I don't think it was strong enough. It was part of my blockage to go into schools. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing I think was my mom and dad, because all your traumas go back to them, yeah. Right? So clearing them and making peace with that trauma is really that's probably the strongest thing you can do. For myself personally, I think it's been, that's been losing my dad and becoming a carer, and that anxiety and depression. That period of anxiety and depression was probably the most important point in my life, because.
So is that your purpose, to make sure that nobody else feels like that?
Yeah, and to help people to understand that feeling their emotions is not a bad thing. Yeah. You know, and I feel like that's, since I've been delivering these workshops and since I've been going through and understanding, is like what's really coming through is emotions. Yeah. Emotions, because they are the key to success. If you can really purge those traumas out your body, if you're able to clear those traumas out, then you can achieve the life that you want. But if you're
let me give you my little story that happened to me recently. So it's not a bit of a running joke, but the dog poos on the car park quite a lot.
Right, okay.
And I don't clean it up, I have a bit of a chancer, but my landlord has said to me a few times about picking it up, and rightfully so. Okay, but there's one time I was in the car park and he came out to me quite aggressive. He said, "You need to be picking it up," and it triggered me. I snapped at him and I went, "Don't ever talk to me like that again. Don't talk to me again." And I walked off, and I was ashamed of myself.
Yeah,
it was like my mum or my dad were telling me off, right? And I was just like, how can I let my emotion do that?
That's a trigger in you, because that goes back to your mum and dad. It's like that's a rebellious part of you. Is like, no, you can't tell me what to do.
But in my head, I'm thinking, I pay you so much money a thing.
Why don't you do it?
That's. I was just like, how pathetic can a man be to think like that when all he's trying to do is make a living and he's got other clients and like, I'm just like, how do I get to that? Why is my head gone there?
It's gone there because it's just, there's trigger in it. I'm sure there's something happened in you in the past or whatever. There's trigger there. Every time there's a trigger there, there's an exile. Yeah. Remember that every time you're angry, exile. What is that anger protecting? Yeah. What is that annoyed part protecting?
I feel a bit ashamed, I think.
Why?
I think I feel ashamed of the fact that this guy's asking me to pick shit up. And I'm like, and I'm not, I don't know, it's a bit of a metaphor of like me not picking up my own shit. And am I asking someone else to do it? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like I need to do what you did and sit in it and ask myself these questions. Why did that trigger me so much?
Yeah, and then you would get the answers.
Why do I think that I'm entitled to pay it and I don't need to pick up my shit? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What is that rebellious part of you? Why does it need... What is blocking? What is the block there? And only you can answer that.
It's beautiful work, isn't it? Just asking yourself them questions. Yeah, and nobody else wants to do that because it's like,
it's self-awareness. Ultimately, it's self-awareness, right? Self-awareness is the key when you start this work off. If you have no self-awareness, I guarantee you're not going to do the work.
When you have the awakening, right, and you're sat in your bedroom and you keep asking yourself them two questions, how long were you doing that for?
For 2 years I was doing that, but in terms of every day I was like probably say about an hour, like asking myself, but asking them probably a couple of times, and then the trauma would come up. a memory would come up. I didn't realize.
How did you have the strength to do that? How did you have the strength in
Honestly,
that moment
I
to
don't
let
know.
those? Because every time like stuff comes up for me, I'm just like, what's happening?
Yeah. That's what I was doing. That's what I was doing for most of my life. When I was gaming, I was like, nope, not looking at it. Nope, looking at it. But after that awakening, something switched in me where it was so painful, but I just knew I've had enough of the life that I was living. And that was probably my why I'm doing it. There's something better. But I'll tell you, I did had like an experience of having, I started to see numbers, angel numbers everywhere. So 444, 1111, everything, I was seeing them everywhere. And then I had an experience where it was quite intense, actually. It was summer. I was walking around the park, and I went up to this tree. For some random reason, I just went up to this tree and I touched it, and I started crying for no reason. I couldn't understand it. Why am I crying touching a tree? And then I came back home. I just felt the beauty, because I felt like I needed to look back, and I looked back and I was like, the whole world is just going past and nobody's stopping to think and look and understand and experience the beauty of the world. No one is doing that, and that's what made me so sad. I came back to my mum's place, and I sat against the radiator. Now it's summer. It's in July. In summer, I felt so cold, like my whole body kind of completely froze, and I felt this energy of like presence of something around me, and I was completely frozen.
Like an attachment, like something's attached.
Like it was almost like angelic kind of presence, right? And it overwhelmed me to a point I was just like sitting there, unable to move, and I'm crying, and I'm frozen. It felt like I was in a fridge, right? That's how cold I became, and like I just felt just like the presence, and I feel like those experiences, even though on the outside it may look, oh crap, that's scary, right? On the outside, but what I felt was just love. That's what I felt, and those experiences were pushing me to keep going forward in this path, because I understood that this is where the journey is going to lead. Now, either that, or I go back to my old self and live miserably. Right? What do you want? You have two choices. You want to live the life of your dreams, go in this direction, or if you want to push it aside and manifest all sort of physical illnesses, mental illnesses, what do you want to do? And I just kept blindly moving forward in this path. And when
somebody says divine intervention, that's what you've had.
Yeah.
For me,
that's
that like surmised.
Because there was no way in hell that I would have got out of that. I was living in my hell. I was literally so deeply in darkness, suicidal, didn't want to be here, didn't have any support, didn't feel loved, seen, heard. My mom was depressed. I was living in an environment where I shouldn't really be getting out of the rest of my life, but it just happened. It just happened that this experience just completely changed my entire life. That one experience.
What an experience, huh? I was like, what the fuck?
What
do we do with that now?
I know.
What do we do with that?
But what I live by faith, though, it's like...
What is that? What does that mean?
Live by faith is that everything that is coming at me right now, whether it's heartbreak, whether it's...
Everything happens for a reason.
It's happening for a reason. And there is a bigger picture. There's some learning out of it. Oh, okay, so there might be something that I need to work on, working on it.
What is God to you? What is your relationship with God?
I don't believe God is like a man in the sky kind of thing, in a religious sense. But I do believe there is... I do believe in universe kind of law of attraction kind of energy. So it's like frequency and vibration. So whatever you put out in the world, it comes back. Yeah. But for me, God is just an energy. Just an energy that is actually learning along with you. So if we had a God that knew every single thing, then we wouldn't have a perfect universe. So we are all imperfect. So it's basically where you have the sun. For example, I'm just giving an example, like a human example. You have the sun, and the sun has rays, right? And the sun is, say, for example, is God, and where the rays, where the souls, where our souls connects back to that oneness, the unity consciousness. We don't feel that in this realm, but we feel it in other realms.
Yeah.
But here it's like a playground. We come in and we play. We go through trauma. We have beautiful experiences. We have all sort of emotions that we need to kind of just maneuver through. But once you get past that victim mentality, because that's where I was at, victim mentality, that life is doing this to me, this has happened now, that's happened. Once you move past that, you actually, if you allow that feeling of life is coming to me, for me, is helping me to grow and expand. If you change that perspective, you will live a lot peacefully.
You understand how unique your story is, though, don't you?
Yeah.
Of healing yourself.
Yeah.
Without anybody else's support.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And you're like, but then you're healing yourself. You're also really connected, because that's when I had that experience, what I really understood was that we're not separate, but the world in this realm, we feel separate. We're separate.
We're all connected.
We're all connected.
Yeah, agreed.
But what's happening right now is the egos and the traumas that's like separating everybody.
What's ego? What is ego?
Ego is there to protect you, right? So it's in this physical realm, it's there to protect you.
Yeah.
So ego would stop. It doesn't want change.
Yeah.
It wants control. And it's doing its part. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. If you're surviving out in a wild, then it's great, right? But what's happened now, ego's kind of just taken over. It's like control, but we want to control everything in life. That's your ego wants to control. But once you let your ego quiet down, you go through a dark night of the soul in between, and that's where the ego dies. Not dies, but it just quiets down. I said, all right then. But your faith, kind of your soul essence kind of comes into play. It's like, okay, I got the driver's seat now, and we're just going to move and flow. Whereas before, ego would be like, I'm not flowing. I want to control this person, situation, scenario. But when ego is quiet, your soul is just navigating you through whatever you need to navigate through. And you live by trust and faith that everything that you will ever go through will be for your benefit. So your darkest times are the biggest like achievement, I would say. It's like a celebration. You should celebrate being in darkest times, because it's what's really preparing you to become the best version of yourself. It's quiet now.
I just don't know what to fucking do with that. I'm just like, I've never met anybody who's been through that experience that you've been through.
Really?
It's insane.
Yeah.
A proper divine intervention. And then not that you've gone seeking help or like, how do I do this? You've sat in your fucking room asking yourself questions and letting yourself cry. It's like, who does that?
Yeah.
Nobody does that. Nobody
and that's
does
what I want to teach people. And
it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Good.
People should do it. You know, I'm doing a lot more of that myself. Just, you know, the trigger. I'll go, right, okay, I'll deal with it now, but I'll go home and I'll sit in stillness and I'll, in a meditation, I'll ask myself that, but I'll verbalise it. Yeah. Why did that trigger you? Why were you feeling like that?
Yeah, it is really hard. Yeah. It really is hard, because emotional pain, we're not trained to deal with it. Yeah. Our parents don't teach us that. Yeah. Our system doesn't teach us that. Yeah. So what we do is we numb the pain as much as we can by working and socializing, partying, and all of that. And then, like I said, those rotten tomatoes get bigger and bigger and bigger and manifest into your physical illnesses. Why do you think so many physical illnesses are at peak state right now? Yeah. You know, it's all emotionally and trauma. It's like you clear that out of your system. You feel amazing. You feel energized. But I can understand why it's really painful, because I've been through that. I didn't want to look at it. until I was finally, like, I looked at it. But yeah, it's a trigger for people to, whenever I talk about this, there is a bit of a trigger for people to like, well, that's a bit too extreme.
Yeah.
Right? It's too extreme. But the way I see it is you always going to be too extreme to the end, right? So majority of our society is extreme numbing, right?
Yeah.
So then there's other people like me. I've met people like me who are doing that work now. Like after 7 years of this journey on my own, I've finally met people, my tribe, who's actually doing this active work on themselves.
Do you class yourself as a light worker? What do you class yourself as?
Yeah, probably light worker, starseed kind of category. But I don't really like labels.
Yeah.
I really don't really like labels. I think I just feel like I'm just here doing whatever I need to do. And my message is always going to be to feel it to heal it. Always feel it to heal it.
We have to. It's like, oh, get on. Get on dealing with that shit.
Yeah,
I get it just watching films, like, just like comes up, you get triggered from a film and you're just
I
like,
know.
oh.
So why is that triggering me?
Okay.
It's like, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all right. Sad this,
Not feeling
sad this bit.
Where's that wine?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's I think it's the greatest work greatest gift that you can give yourself.
Yeah.
I think I always say peeling the first layer off is the hardest. So when you actually start sitting with it, that is so painful, and I can just understand why people like run the other way.
But people need help, don't they, to do it? It's like, that's what I'm saying, it's so unique, you being able to sit there for years doing that. But other people need that guidance, don't they? And not attacking everything at once and just doing little bits.
Yeah. It's probably maybe why, like, there are other people like me as well who are able to sit with it, right? There are people in our tribe who are consciously doing this work. Maybe that is what we need to teach out in the world. This is why our workshops are important, for people to guide them and hold space for them, while they're going through it, but not to the extreme that we've done it.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's
hard.
Extreme,
that.
Yeah, it is.
I love the feel it to heal it. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So
really
it's like I do believe that there's in order to find a balance, because everybody's trying to look for a balance in life, but in order to find that balance, you have to swing both ways.
Yeah.
You have to swing extremes in both ends, extreme to light, or extreme to darkness, or extreme to feel, whatever it is. And what it will eventually do through your own experience, it will slowly come back into balance.
Right.
So you'll know the balance.
Yeah.
You know what it is, but you have to go through the extremes. It's if you're on one end of the spectrum and you're like, you're triggered the fact that, I shouldn't be here, I should be balanced. No, you should be here. You need to experience that. Whether it's for a year or two, you need to experience that. Because in order to find balance, you need to be in both ends, experience both ends.
What's your thoughts on people using psychedelics to get to that point?
Okay, my thoughts on that is I think everybody's on a different journey, but I feel like I don't take any.
Yeah.
Right? Purely because I feel like I don't want to bypass anything, right? So what if at this point of my life, maybe 10 years down the line, I might be like, I'm going ayahuasca, then I'll be ready for it. But at this moment, if I take ayahuasca now when I'm not ready for it, then it could easily be beyond extreme, right? Yeah. So my personal take on it is like, only take any sort of psychedelics or anything that you want to take. It's take where you need to assess where you're at in your journey. You don't want to do too much all at once, trying to experience, because then you don't want to be left with a whole lot of shadows that you don't know how to
traumatize you again.
Yeah, you don't.
Deeper.
You have to. There's a fine line.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to really work with somebody who's a professional at this, right? Who really can hold space for you with that trauma, not just the fun of it. Yeah, I'm just gonna go on ayahuasca because my friends are doing it.
Yeah.
it's really get to know
There's
why.
a big trend
Yeah.
of people doing it, and it
Yeah.
scares me a little bit because
Yeah.
I got presented ayahuasca, but very luckily I got presented mushrooms, and I went down the mushroom route, and it was a lot lighter and what's in. It was a nice experience.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can get to that in my own breath work and meditation now.
I mean, like, it's not a bad thing because it's like, you know, we've known the benefits. It's like really looks into your stuff and it really presents you, gives you a new pair of eyes to see, right? But you have to be ready for it. And I guess like what they say is that ayahuasca will call you when you're ready for it. So you're ready for it. But that's just my personal take on it really at the moment. I don't know, 5 years down the line, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna have mushrooms, you know, I'm gonna do this. But I'm having such success just feeling my emotions and moving past the trauma myself. I don't feel I need it because it's like I don't even need that high because my energy is really high anyway. Like I don't drink, I don't smoke. I've never drank and smoked in my entire life. And I end up in a club full of people and they need the drink to kick in. Whereas I'm already drinking water and just dancing for hours and hours and hours, right? So I don't need that because life is, I want to live it consciously, like in the moment, like in the present moment. I want to live it consciously as much as possible, even through the pain, even through the light, right? I want to live consciously and I don't want anything outside of me to change, alter that thought. The only way I can do that is by myself in the journey that I'm on, right?
Feel it and heal it.
Yeah.
You blow my mind, dude. It's amazing. So how can people get in touch with you? If they want to work with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can get in touch with me on Instagram. So I've Instagram, Madea Sosan1. I also have a podcast. It's called Soul Awakenings with Madea Sosan. So I started that off in pandemic to help people navigate through their spiritual awakening. So I get all sort of different people coming in, like Bob Dole from The Secret, he came on, and Rachel Alno from Dragon's Den, she came on. All sort of practitioners talking about trauma. So it's like basically a platform that people can come to when if they're going through their spiritual awakening, you know, so they're not alone. They know that when you awaken to your true self, it's scary. It's scary because the life that you know is no longer the life you know. It's like unplugging from the matrix. So you have also these different people come in my podcast and they just share their stuff. So it's Soul Awakenings with Madea Sosan.
I'm going to start listening to it now.
Yeah, do it.
Amazing.
I might get you on it as well. Share your story.
I'm there. Thank you so much,
Great.
mate, for your
Thank
time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Goodbye.
You're branded with the best. You're branded with the best. You're branded with the best. You're branded with the best.